Happy Thursday. We are getting everything set up and I'm going to power through this live. Um, Instagram is always the holdup, but one day it will not be. Okay, we're talking about how the world class confronts their fears. Average people, they suppress, express, or escape their fears, or worse, they live in denial. Like most of the world is like an ostrich burying its head in the sand. Average people are paralyzed by their fearful, limiting beliefs, acting as if their fear is a sea of hungry tiger sharks ready to devour them, when in reality, their fears are as deep as a 1-inch puddle. Maybe you've been there. I know I have. Since average-minded people never face their fears, doing the work to detach from their mental bondage and reprogramming their minds, they end up attracting and developing more fears. Average people are oblivious to the psychological fact that the more fear you have, the more fear you attract in your life. Therefore, they live in this vicious cycle of breeding more and more fear, which ultimately limits them more and more, fueling increased unhappiness, insecurity, and unfulfillment. Now, due to these feelings being so overwhelming within them and their inability to effectively process them and detach from them, average-minded people take out their fear on innocent people, blaming the outside world for their internal mayhem. Maybe this has been done to you or you've done it. Now, what's worse is that average-minded people go to average-minded therapists or coaches or consultants to deal with their fears. They believe that if they express their fears, they can overcome them. But in reality, and we've proven this in science, expressing your feelings only increases the feeling, giving it greater energy. Additionally, the average-minded therapist cannot help them resolve their unresolved fear because the average-minded therapist, coach, consultant, whomever, is doing the exact same thing the average mind client is doing, suppressing, expressing, and escaping their own fears. Now, instead of overcoming their fears, the average individual becomes more afraid. Now, what do world-class thinkers do with their fear? Well, it's the opposite of what average-minded people do, to put it simply. Winners understand emotionally and fundamentally that everything they want is on the other side of fear. This truth quickly becomes many winners' mantras, propelling them towards greatness. The champion, through years of personal development work and learning, through learning their wiring, and why they do what they do, has learned there's nothing to fear, which is why they face their fear-filled limiting beliefs. And hey, everyone, thanks for joining me. Really excited. We're talking about how the world class faces their fear, unlike the average individual, which is most of the world. Now, again, the world class thinker understands that their fear is just a limiting belief holding them back in life, not protecting them. What do they do to free themselves from fear, you ask? Great question. Thanks for asking, too. First, the world-class thinker recognizes that they don't need to be afraid of being afraid. It's so true, too. Such a simple truth. Secondly, they open themselves to all the sensations, thoughts, and feelings attached to their fears. They don't fight this, but radically accept the reality, leveraging mindfulness and an open-mindedness through curiosity, which cultivates a safe space free of judgment and condemnation. Ultimately, they're bringing love into the equation. Love is the most powerful vibration there is on earth. It's crazy. It's crazy. Now, world-class thinkers rise into a higher level of consciousness, becoming spectators of their thoughts, feelings, emotions, and they're curiously observing the mental images that come to mind, the meaning they make from these fears, and the past experiences that assemble the limiting belief. And then they do something that average people can't comprehend. They lean into their fears. Instead of running away from them or freaking out, they lean into them. It's amazing how you could transform your fears just by leaning into them. They face the real core of the fear by metaphorically examining the elusive fear by asking powerful and solution-focused questions like, what for? Or what's the real meaning of this fear for me? Or what is it that I really fear and what is it for? Or what does it mean if that fear really happened? And has it happened? Have I already survived this potential adolescent fear? They continue to drill down until they identify that their real fear is a projection of feeling unworthy, insecure, unfulfilled, or unhappy. Could be all four. Then they detach from these childlike concerns and illogical thinking by rising even higher into their higher consciousness. The number one way they do this is by bringing love into the arena of their fears. And this can be demonstrated through motivational, compassionate, and mindful self-talk. You need to have that as you rise into your higher self, and reminding themselves that they are worthy regardless of what they do or what they obtain. So the bottom line is the average minded individual runs, suppresses, and avoids their fears, or they think that they're overcoming it by talking about it, which is just quite frankly stupid. You just usually make it worse. There's a way to talk about it, and sometimes that context matters more. Anywho, winners face the fear head on by sitting with the fear. They emotionally detach from the meaning their internal child makes of the fear. We all have an internal child inside of us, and they rise higher into that higher self. So the average minded person brings more fear into their fears, and the winner brings love into their fears through leaning into it, asking questions, being curious, really examining what this is about, really getting clear on even what they're really afraid of, because most people aren't even clear on what they're really afraid of, which in time actually extinguishes the fear, and it can happen quite quickly. It's insane. So I want to give you 5 action steps that you can do, okay? Number 1, I want you to write a list of all your fears, especially focus on the fears that are holding you back from achieving your most precious goals. Number 2, pick the fear that if you conquered it would have the greatest impact on your life, because that's probably what you need to be spending most of your time on. Number 3, I want you to explore, examine, and curiously observe the sensations, the emotions, the feelings, the thoughts, the images that come to mind. Maybe it's a lot of past experiences. Continue to peel back all the layers by asking questions that examine the thoughts with curiosity as opposed to judging the thoughts. Okay, we're just exploring. We're being curious. Number 4, choose to sit with the fear. Allow all the emotions to run through you. Allow all the thoughts to run through you. Don't attach to any of them. Just observe them. Kind of open yourself up and just observe everything that runs through your mind. Just kind of like when you were a kid and you might cloud watch, or you might people watch, or you might like to watch the birds. Just observe. Don't condemn. Don't judge. Just observe. And number 5, when you identify the thought that is really producing these fears, usually connected to some feeling of either unworthiness, unhappiness, unfulfillment, or insecurity, choose to let it go by realizing that doing whatever you are afraid of doing or obtaining whatever you want to obtain is not going to actually increase your confidence. It's not going to lead to, it will increase your confidence, but it will not lead to more happiness, more fulfillment, or more worth, right? Something external can't do that for the internal, right? So those are your action steps. Let me know how this was, and I will see you tomorrow. Unfortunately, this is going to be a fast live because I got to get ready for some clients, but I'm rooting for you. You can do anything you set your mind to, so go operate from love and abundance. Have a great one.